This is crazy talk. This should scare Democrats to the core. You have a seasoned journalist. NBC is still bringing in Tom Brokaw. He's got to be at least 10 years older than Chris Matthews. Easily. They're still bringing him in. Why? Because he has a wealth of experience. He's seen an arc. You now have this network. His excuse is, and this is not the truth, I'll tell you the truth in a second, but his excuse is, the younger generation, they're ready to take over. So there's no place for people with experience. There's no place for people like Chris Matthews. None. And then he goes on to say, but they have fairer standards. Well, that doesn't sound like a fairer standard. Hey, you've had your time, Grandpa. Get out. That's not a fairer standard. That's a scary standard. But then he goes on for the real cover. And that is, I made some really inappropriate remarks at the time. They have fair standards. What we thought 30 years ago was fair was not fair. Well, yeah, that was 30 years ago. There's no forgiveness for what happened 30 years ago. Now, there's been a recent claim on Chris Matthews. I don't even know how long ago it happened, but this woman came out and said, look, this was not sexual harassment. I just made me feel uncomfortable. He said, boy, you are beautiful. How come I haven't fallen in love with you before? Hey, to the makeup person, keep putting more makeup on her. And I'm never going to be able. I mean, that's a really bad compliment. Hey, cover her face some more and she's pretty. But even the person who accused it said it wasn't sexual harassment. But that's what he's going out on. That's the fairer standards he's going out on. Let me tell you what really happened. Because Chris Matthews, when he said, this will be my last hardball. No, it wasn't his last hardball. It was the last 3 minutes on air. Because when he went to break, Steve Kornacki came in and he replaced in the show. They went to break. Chris Matthews is gone and Steve Kornacki is taking, and he appeared shocked by it. Some of his first words were, that's an awful lot to take in. That was an awful lot to take in. Well, yeah. So Chris was allowed to say goodbye to his audience. Now, that is rare in and of itself. If they're firing you, no network allows you to go back on the air, which reminds you, just would like to remind you, I believe there were 4 or 6 months of shows I did after Fox supposedly fired me. Not possible. Doesn't happen. They let him do a 3-minute segment that was scripted. And I'm sure that there were things like, you're going to lose all your severance, all everything. You'll lose all benefits unless you shut your mouth and say only that. He did. So why did this happen? It happened because CNN is the establishment network that uses revolutionaries. MSNBC is the revolutionary network that uses the establishment. And the revolutionaries are done with the establishment. When Chris Matthews said last week, Bernie Sanders taking over the Democratic Party and winning like he's winning is like the Nazis taking France. That was the death knell. Nothing else.
Yep.
Nothing else. You do not speak against the revolutionaries at NBC. That's what it was. And I have to tell you, Chris Matthews has said horrible things about me. He also, before he went to work for MSNBC with the revolutionaries,
was a fan.
He was a fan. I listened to him every day. He said, I listen to him every day.
Yesterday.
He's one of the brightest men on radio, blah, 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 blah. He said all of those things about me. Then he started falling in with the revolutionaries, and all of a sudden, I'm the worst person in the world. I don't change for money. I don't change for the wins. I don't change. Chris Matthews, you embarrassed yourself with the way you behaved with the revolutionaries, and you are now paying that price that I told you would come. You're lucky to get out of there before anything worse happens, because those revolutionaries are now talking about fulfilling my prophecy from Fox when I said they're going to come in and drag you out of your studio and into the streets and beat you to death. I was wrong. Bernie Sanders supporters are now saying they'll set you on fire in the street. So you're lucky you got out before all of that. You were on the wrong side. But it's a sad day to see a guy who has that long of a career, who has at times been very right and very helpful to the country, even though I've disagreed with him. Mm-hmm. It's sad to see him brushed aside and forced to read a statement that is as ridiculous as that one, that the new generation is coming in. Well, all of those grandparents that were watching you, Chris, they also have a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge. Should they be brushed aside for this new enlightened generation? Because it doesn't seem that enlightened to me.